Okay, so last notes for fractions, 2-3, multiplying and dividing fractions. And our essential question today is going to be, how do I find the product of two or more partial numbers? So remember, product means that we are multiplying. Okay? All right, so let's go to some of our essential questions. What do I need to multiply fractions? So what you need to have, you don't have to worry about a common denominator. So let's write that in. No common denominator. We don't worry about that because we're not adding and subtracting. Okay? And we'll do a couple little things in class that'll get you to understand that. But what would make your life easier is that you always want everything in either a proper or improper fraction. And when I say that, I mean no mixed numbers. So like 1 3/4. You don't want that, okay? So you want things to look like 7/4. Okay, so that's the improper fraction version of 1 3/4. That is usable. 1 3/4 is gonna mess you up, so let's not do that, okay? All right, what is the relationship between multiplication and division? So they are inverse, what we call inverse operations. And there's a lot of those in math, okay? Adding, subtracting are the inverse of each other, multiplying, dividing, so they're basically the opposite of one another, okay? And opposite becomes a big word in algebra. We use it a lot, okay? What is a reciprocal? That is when we take a fraction and flip it over. So it flips over a fraction. So, for example, if you have 3/4, the reciprocal of that is 4/3. Okay, just flips upside down. Okay, so division, dividing by a fraction, actually any number, but let's say a fraction, is the same as multiplying by its reciprocal. Okay? So, and let's think about that just a little bit. So if I have 3 candy bars and I want to divide them by 2 people, well, that means that each person is getting half of what I have. So that's the same as 3 times 1/2. Okay? 2 can be written as a fraction as 2/1. So these two are the same thing. Okay? All right, let's go over to our practice. Okay, so there are 2 ways you can multiply fractions. I'm going to show you both ways, and then you can choose your own way. I'm going to tell you from the outset, I think method 2 is easier, but we're going to go ahead and do it. So when you're multiplying fractions, all you're doing is multiplying the numerators together and the denominators together, okay? So in this case, 5 times 3 is 15, 7 times 12 is 84. Now, if you give that answer, that's going to be marked wrong because this is a reducible fraction. And I can reduce each of those by 3. So 15 divided by 3 is 5, and 84 divided by 3 is 28. Now that is a simplified fraction, and that's your answer. Okay? So here's where I'm going to show you that I think method 2 is better. So, or more efficient. Okay? So if I have the same problem, my second method is going to be to see if I can cross-cancel anything first. So remember, the last section of notes I told you cannot cross cancel in adding, subtracting, but you definitely can in multiplying, dividing. So another way that I could write this equation is, you can, since you're multiplying everything together, this actually means 5 times 3 on the top, and then 12 I can change into a 4 and a 3, and then I'm multiplying that by 7. 4 times 3 is the equivalent of 12. Okay? Well, now remember what we said before, that anytime you have the same number divided by itself, when we were finding equivalent fractions, we were always multiplying by a number over itself because that equaled 1. So by the same token, if I have the same number, which I do, I have a 3 up top and a 3 on the bottom. 3 divided by 3 is 1. So conveniently, I can just cross those out. Now all I have left is a 5 on the top and a 4 times 7 on the bottom, which is 28. So I have the same answer for both problems. I just went about it a different way. I think this is the easiest because you're canceling and simplifying before you multiply, which to me is easier. You don't have to do it that way. That's just my advice, but you're going to do it the way that you're going to do it. Okay? All right, so when we go to dividing fractions, and actually there's a mistake in my notes, I realized. Since dividing is the opposite of multiplying, we must do the opposite of what we did above. Okay? So this is where that reciprocal comes in really important. So reciprocal is important. So with me, scratch this problem out. And I'm actually going to scratch it out in black. Scratch that problem out. And rewrite it below. 4 over 9 divided by 1 over 3. So what I'm going to do is this whole thing is the same as 4 over 9 times, and I'm going to flip this over, so 3 over 1. So my advice to you is to look to see if there's anything on top. And if you have to write it like this, where you change the 9, remember we talked a lot about swapping things out, that's the same as 3 times 3. So now I have a 3 up here and a 3 down here that I can cancel out. So when I get my answer, all I have is 4, and then 1 times 3, which is 3. And I can leave it as an improper fraction. Please do not change that back to a mixed number, because in algebra, really, it doesn't help you to have mixed numbers, so we're only going to deal with improper fractions. So let's write that in. Improper fractions only. When we get into things like slope, you always use an improper fraction. So let's just leave it like that. And that's it for the notes. Thanks.